Welcome to the Bill Cartwright Show with Steve Cohen. Our special guest is maybe the best free throw shooter. And I would say he is the best free throw shooter on the planet, Bob Fisher. Bob, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Bill. Number one, I'm grateful and honored that you would have me on. I must take issue with that. The best free throw shooter in the planet right at this moment would be James Pauly. And James Pauly lives in San Diego. And the reason I say that is because I've got a lot of Guinness World Records, but James is, if you were looking for somebody to have $1 million to make a shot, James would be your man, because he has made like 3,000 in a row without a miss. Not come anywhere close to that. So James is my man.
Well, you do have, what is it, like 14 records now?
Current, yes. It depends on how you look at it. I have broken or set 28 Guinness World Records, and I'm the current holder in 14 separate categories.
That's amazing.
Well,
hey, can we do this? Let's talk a little bit about yourself. Let's tell us where you grew up, and I want to know a little bit about your mom and dad.
I grew up a very small town in northeast Kansas, a mile south of Vermillion, Kansas, and I spent many times walking to school, actually. But the bus would come and pick us up. My mom and dad taught. They were mom always had a bunch of sayings that, when you're a kid, you don't want to hear them, but over time you find that they're very true. One of them was time will take care of everything, which, as a kid, you don't want to hear that. The other thing they believed and they taught me was the value of hard work. Dad worked off, he farmed, and then he worked off the farm also. And mom was continually working. I mean, I'm from a large family. We had a family of 10, and it was a constant. Everybody had their chores to do, so to speak, and you learn the value of hard work, and that has played well throughout life for me.
Can you talk about yourself as a high school kid? What kind of kid were you?
One that you would not want your daughter to bring home to meet the parents. I think I was pretty average for the most part. Played high school ball. I think it was high school. In junior high, I fell in love with the game of basketball, and played baseball at an early age, but basketball in particular, I fell in love with at the junior high level, and I just continued that through on out high school. Did not play college at all, and it was I guess basketball was important to me in high school, and I went to school to play basketball for the most part. But it was a small town, a small school, and I don't know. As far as a kid, I think I was just pretty average for the most part. Get out. Mom's whole thing was get out, get a job, and for the most part, we all did that.
Talk about yourself after high school, and then I want you to talk about your first job you ever got.
Oh man, I bounced around quite a bit. It's not unlike the kids of today, where you go in and you work. First job that I had was at a gas station. That was when I was in high school, and then when you get out, I went up and worked in a warehouse. I worked on the railroad. I worked as a machinist, and then I latched on my career as a soil conservation technician, as a soil conservationist, as far as designing and engineering conservation practices for people in this area. And that's pretty much where I ended my career. Along the way, I started coaching basketball as a hobby. so to speak, in addition to working. And I coached several teams in the area, schools that were in dire need of a coach. And I really, with the shooting part, or where that evolved was, and I'd like to back up a step, Bill. Number one, I want listeners to know I appreciate you. There is a handful of people, and I can still recall the first time I called you on the phone. And number one, I was shocked. I was surprised that you answered. Number two, I was surprised that you knew who I was. And number three, I was shocked when I asked you if you were interested in a different approach to shooting. You said yes. And then as I recall, I launched into this pool ball analogy. Everybody is shooting is trying to do a straight on shot, and you can also make a cut shot. And the way you make a cut shot is you find that spot that knocks the ball in the hole, and you hit the cue ball into that spot. And your comment was, makes sense. And, the thing was, this was, gosh, what was this? This was 7 or 8 years ago when I just come across this concept, so to speak. And I was developing it. And I can recall talking with Brett about, anyway, what I was going to say was, you were very open-minded, and I appreciate that. The fact that you were willing to listen, and then, when we did meet up, it was in 2016, 5 years ago, and you sat through the PowerPoint, and then you made the comment that thousands of kids could use this information. That was, what to say, when I feel like to a large extent, I've been somewhat isolated out here in Northeast Kansas, and that is a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is I wasn't really able to collaborate with anybody, and when I was trying to figure all this stuff out, and all I did was just build on what John Fontanella did with the physics of basketball. I just took what he said and built on that and made it more, what to say, common sense, understandable to the common person. And also Larry Silverberg was a huge influence on me. And anyway, I just wanted to say, I wanted to get that in there, the fact that you are one of the most open-minded people I know. From the coaching aspect, it's not like most times I get the comment that, well, we've got our way of doing things, and that's as far as it goes. So anyway, thank you for that.
Well, thank you. But on that note, let's talk about this. Now, now you're retired, you decide you're going to make yourself into a great free throw shooter. Now, just talk about that. Talk about your first thoughts and how you were able to accomplish that.
The book that really influenced me was Daniel Coyle's book, The Talent Code. Talent isn't grown. Talent isn't born. Sorry, back up. The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. The subtitle is Talent Isn't Born, It's Grown, Here's How. And this book came out in 2009, and there was 3 or 4 other books that all said the same thing. Balance by Matthew Side, The Genius in All of Us by David Shank, and Talent is Overrated by Jeff Colvin. And they all said that basically it takes just 3 things to become good, and that is knowledge, practice, and time. Persistence, practice, and coaching or knowledge. And that was it. And I went to the gym pretty much just check this out. Now, through the course of things, or going and practicing, at clinics, I tell kids this. I said, if you want to become good at something, you're going to run through 5 phases or 5 stages. Call them 5 stages. And the first stage is anytime you start something that is totally different to you, or like playing the piano. It's going to be, you're going to go through this stage where it's the I can't stage. And the I can't stage, it seems like the what you're trying to do is just simply monumental, and there's no way in heavens you're ever going to accomplish it. But if you continue on and keep coming back the next day, and continue, you move to the second stage, which is what I call the I suck stage. And in the I suck stage, you're worse than everybody else that does it, you know, but you can do it once in a while. Once, twice out of 10 times, you can do it. And then if you continue on, you move up to the stage where you're average. And that is, you're just as good as everybody else. And if you continue on, you move to a fourth stage where one day you wake up and you think, you know, I'm pretty good. And if you continue on and get the highest level coaching, training, and practice, you can move to what we just watched was the Olympic stage, and that's world class, where you're the best. And when I started all this, I just decided to see if what Coyle and the other authors said was true. And what I found out was it is. You know, anybody can become better at anything, and shooting is no different than any other skill. It's just a matter of knowing what you're wanting to accomplish and moving in that direction. And I can say that, you know, I kind of experimented at length. There's a great book called what is it called? It's called Think Again by Adam Grant, and it's the power of knowing what you do not know. And in it, he talks about we should, you know, we are all, and this what impressed me about you was the fact that you were open-minded enough. We all run everything that we hear through a filter of what we previously have experienced in life. And that filter influences how we think. And we tend to see what we want to see, we tend to hear what we want to hear, and disregard the rest. And what Grant in his book says is we should think more like a scientist, not a preacher or a lawyer, but like a scientist, where we are open to other things. So anyway, when I went to the gym, I just tried to think more like a scientist and experimented at length without any agenda of trying to make any particular method work. I recently did a clinic last week where my opening statement to the kids was, I've got some good news and bad news. Good news is there's 100 different ways to shoot. Bad news is there's 100 different ways to shoot. And the thing is, you know, my point to them, and I don't know if they got it or not, but my point to them is you go to the gym and you don't have enough time. You know, in your playing career, you're going to be done when you're high schoolers. You don't have enough time to work through that 100 different ways of shooting. But it's very true. There are multiple ways you can shoot. And what I have evolved to over the course of time is Aristotle was the first, I think, who come up with first principles. You know, we know what we know, and we're going to base everything that we learn in the future off of what we already know. And with shooting, for me, there's some common first principles. And the first principle is a balanced ball will go straight. And that is, you know, you can say, well, yeah, everybody knows that. But the thing is, if you balance the ball perfectly, it will go straight. It's no different than spinning a ball on your finger. And I happen to have one here, and I wasn't able to do this, but if you spin the ball on your finger, if you keep the ball centered, it's gonna stay on your finger. If you get it too much to one side, it's gonna fall this way. If too much to the other side, it falls that way. Shooting is the same thing. If you will balance the ball, if you will have a perfectly balanced ball before the wrist snap starts, and you continue that balanced ball throughout the wrist snap phase of the shot, that ball is going to go straight every single time. The second key concept, I guess, is, I got this from Larry Silverberg. We went in and met with Larry Silverberg I've got a brother that lives in Durham, North Carolina. And Silverberg agreed to meet with us, and we went in and met with him. And he made the comment, I was asking him about, coming across the ball at an angle or whatever. And he made the comment, it is the net force that's important. And with the methodology that I utilize, the net force has to all come from one hand. And we got a nation full of kids who are 1.5 hand shooters, or they use their off thumb to generate force to the ball, which allows them to have their fingers, it's basically like this as they're shooting the ball. Well, you have to have a balanced ball in one hand, and the net force needs to come all from one hand. And the third key concept, and I got this from Peter Brancazio way back in the day, the physics professor from Brooklyn, and he said, what you're really after is the least effort shot. You want to generate force as efficiently as possible. John Wooden had the quote, and John Wooden is quoted a lot, but John Wooden once said that a shot at the basket is simply a throw at the basket. And I think what he's saying there is, for the most part, extremely accurate. In fact, I believe it, because it can be a throw at the basket, to where it is very natural. You're generating force very efficiently, and it's the least effort shot, because that allows you to be more accurate.
Can you talk a little bit about the physical compared to the mental part of shooting?
The physical, the one thing that I have found that is not really rated high enough is what is it? Repetition is the mother of learning, as long as there's skill in the repetition. I don't know who said that. The guy who told me that comment was Neil White from Australia, when we went to China and participated on the Jing de Zhongyi show. Neil White was there, and he was a trainer in Australia, and he did this push-ups on medicine balls type thing, or exercise balls, which was quite the feat. And he could also jump from ball to ball. I mean, he was quite the athlete. But repetition is the mother of skill, as long as there's skill in the repetition. And that is so true, because there's also another big influence I had was Michael Mercenich on his TED Talk. Michael Mercenich is one of the leading neuroscientists in the world, and he made the comment that, or he tells about the story of, they did an experiment with this monkey, and the monkey was trained to teach itself, like to feed itself with a tool. And what they did was they took an MRI imaging of the monkey's brain before and then after. And what they found was the area of the brain that was responsible for the touching of the tool grew in size during that experiment. And what that led me to believe was the fact that when you shoot a ball over time, if you do it enough, you can develop, and if you're aware, you can develop the sensitivity in your fingers to where you can feel the ball better and get more information from that part of your anatomy as you shoot. And I think that's very true. But yeah, I think repetition is underrated. Long story short, repetition is underrated. So as far as the mental, the mental, what I have found works best for me is if I'm going to go, let's say we're going to go do a record. What I found works best for me is if I will focus on the key element. If I just go on and think of nothing, I haven't done real well at that, because I think you have sensory overload and you get in a strange, a slightly different situation and you get distracted. But if I will focus on one key element that I need to be successful with, that seems to work the best for me.
Yeah, one thing I definitely wanted to ask you is could you take us back when you're an adult and long after your high school playing career, is over, you said, you know what, this is something I really want to explore being excellent at. And why did you do it? And did you went through those 5 stages too, where you felt like you couldn't and you were sucked, etc. When did you decide, hey, I have the audacity to think I could be an amazing free throw shooter, and I want to devote the time to it?
This was 2009, the fall of 2009. I was 52 at the time, and Fontanella released the catalyst was Fontanella released the book The Physics of Basketball in 2007, and backing up even more, it was like 35 years ago I heard the advice, become an expert in something, and for me that was shooting a basketball. So I listened to all the gurus of the game at that time, and they all preached their method, and then I guess it was up to the masses to learn that method. And Fontanella releasing the book The Physics of Basketball in 2006, I ran across it in 2007, early 2007, and I studied it. And what Fontanella did was he broke the flight of the ball down into 4 factors, which is gravity, which dominates, and then you have drag force as it moves through the air, it slows down, and then you have Magnus force to spin on the ball, and then you have the buoyancy of the ball. And being a physics professor, he put that in an equation and came up with a 6-foot player releasing from a 7-foot vantage point should release with a 51-degree launch angle for the slowest moving ball when it gets to the rim for the shooter's touch. 7-foot player should release with a 48.7-degree launch angle. And that, nobody's going to go out there to the court and think 1 or 2 degrees difference, but that approach, that approach really appealed to me, rather than somebody's opinion of stand here, do this, point this foot this way, whatever, So from that point on, I made the conscious effort to go in and learn John did the long short aspect of shooting, and I made the effort to determine what factor influences left to right. And also Fontanella, I was listening to an NPR radio interview he did, and he mentioned that he released off his middle and ring finger. That was news to me. I didn't know, every shooting instructor had always said release off your index or your index and middle finger. Well, I didn't even know you could do that. So I go to the gym and experiment. And the following year in 2008, we came out with a shooting video called Secrets of Shooting. And in that video, I said, well, you can shoot this way, this way, this way, this way. And basically 4 different ways that you could release off your fingers. And it was, the video came out and we had it professionally done and was met with a thundering silence, so to speak. I was a high school coach at the time, and everybody knows how to shoot, Steve. But thanks to the video, we met Ted St. Martin, who was current most consecutive in a row with 5,221 free throws in a row, and he encouraged me to start shooting, and I didn't take him up on it. Dr. Tom Amberry, who friend of Bill knows Dr. Tom, but Dr. Tom, we met him and just enjoyed our time with him immensely, and he encouraged me to start shooting also. But it wasn't until Coyle came out with a book in 2009 that said, you're going to change, your brain's going to change as you practice. And it was that thought, the science behind it, I guess, that encouraged me to go to the gym. And 4 months later, I set my first record, which received some local publicity. And it was like, well, I made 50 in a minute, and the 2-minute record is only 68. How tough is that? So it just kind of rolled on from there. And fortunately, it's like Connie made the comment the other day that the one thing we've really been able to we're very fortunate in the aspect that the shooting has enabled us to meet some wonderful people, and it has, and experience some great experiences that we otherwise wouldn't have.
Why do you think you took to it so quickly? What were you doing that other people weren't?
I had a different method. I had different knowledge than what everybody else was trying to do. It's knowing what to do is it what to say. It accelerates the process. The thing about my methodology is there's feedback. All you have to do is watch where the ball goes. It goes back to that spinning the ball on your finger. If you miss to the left, it's because the ball became off balance to the left during the shot. And if your fingers end up over here, if you're powering it with one hand and this hand's not on the ball, if your fingers are over here, the ball's going to go to the left. If you're over here, it's going to go to the right. And then it's just a matter of building up the fingertip feel to understand exactly where the center of the ball is at the moment of release, because that's the key factor. We've got four upper joints, and you got your shoulder rotation, you got your elbow extension, and then you got your forearm pronation, and then you've got your wrist flexion. And the last joint is what influences the shot, and that's the wrist flexion. So as long as you will align the pivot point, as long as you balance the ball over the center of the pivot point of your wrist, which is right there where you indent on the backside of your wrist, as long as you have the ball centered over, and if you watch great shooters, they will center the ball over the pivot point of the wrist, fingertips are in line with the ball. At the moment of release, they've got the center of the wrist, they've got the last moving finger leaving the ball in the center of the ball, and the ball's going to go straight every single time. And that's basic science. I mean, that's no different than if I take the ball and drop it, and I do this at a clinic. I drop the ball, what's going to happen? Well, it's going to hit the ground. Why? Because gravity. Well, when you do the last moving joint and the fingertip that leaves the ball in the center of the ball, it's going to go straight every single time. And that's just basic physics, basic science, whatever you want to call it.
Have a lot of players approached you to get help?
Not yet. That's the next stage, because I recall, it was about the same time I talked to Bill 7-8 years ago. I called Brett Ballard, who was at Wake Forest at the time. He's now at Washburn, head coach at Washburn. But I pretty much did the same thing as I did with Bill, and Brett was, Coach Ballard was open, but his first question was, now, how do I teach this to my players? And at that time, I had just come up with a concept, I don't know, so the last 7-8 years, I've been working on how do you best teach it. And it's becoming clearer and clearer to me how to do that. And it's like, I feel like I could teach you. I feel like I could teach anybody, and do it very quickly, because I've experienced it. I can do it. And the thing is, in this day and age, there's a great book out called Sprawl Ball by Kirk Goldsberry, and he talks about the importance of and the evolution, the revolution that's going on in basketball today, where everybody's realized the 3-point shot is so much more important, or there's greater value to it than the mid-range game, which is why the mid-range is dying. And also, he points out the quickness at which you get the shot off is important. And that's what I've been working. That's what I've been working on for the last 11 years.
And then, how did this excellence in this area extend to other areas of your life? Being amazing at free throw shooting, did it help in your relationships with other people, your work life, your organization?
I would say yes, it did, because you see those, and it just it's applicable to everything. Have I applied it to the degree that I probably should have? Probably not. But, I feel like in the work area, I definitely did. In relationship area, maybe not as much as I should have. But yeah, it all goes back to that knowledge, practice, time works.
Bob, can you talk about, I have two questions for you. One is, can you get better? And two, what is your ultimate goal for yourself? Is it to work with a school, university, NBA team? What's your ultimate goal?
I feel that question number one, I am getting better. Even at I turn 64 next month. Even at the age of 64, I feel like I'm improving, and I was already to the gym this morning. And the answer would be yes, I am getting better. Just 3 weeks ago, I made 67 free throws in a minute, and my previous best had been 58. So it was nice to know I haven't lost it yet.
Wow.
The answer to your second question, I guess my dream job would be, I'm very interested to see what a team could do, because I feel like there's places that we have not yet explored. I feel like shooting is getting better, and I would like very much to be a part of that with a team, be it on a college level or the professional level. Jay Larranaga of the Boston Celtics visited 2 years ago. He read my book and said, we started emailing, and he said, I'd like to come out for a visit. And I said, sure, that would be great. And lo and behold, he made it out. And when he went back to Boston, he flew us back to Boston, and we had the privilege of working with a couple players they were interested in drafting. It was a and Jay is a believer in my methodology, and has stated that when he gets a head coaching position, that I might have a job as a shooting coach. So that would be fantastic, and at the college level, it would be fantastic as well. Locally here, there's not been any interest in that. I have approached them, but I guess I'm open to that, and that would be my dream job, I guess.
Awesome. Hey, Bob, talk a little bit about your family.
I am married to my wonderful wife, Connie. We have 5 grandkids. We just added a 5th, Finley.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Levi is his older brother, and he was so excited to get a baby brother. When he came home from the hospital, he was just beside himself with joy. That has worn off. Levi has found out he's no longer the star attraction. Brinley is the closest. Granddaughter, she's down in Shawnee, and Nikki and Toby are her parents there, and Toby coaches a lot of the youth teams there and does a fantastic job, better than I did as far as relating with the kids, and Brinley was up for a weekend, and my whole point was about, she was another one of those one in a thumb shooters, and it was the whole weekend it was pounding her on balance ball goes straight. Jennifer and Garrett are in the military and is currently serving in Japan. Emily and Lucas are there and have been for 2 years. We were scheduled to go over and visit them, and then this was 2 years ago. We were scheduled to go over in the spring. Well, actually, last March, April, we were scheduled to fly over to Japan, and of course, the coronavirus hit and put a nix to that. And we haven't been over there yet. Japan is, they put on the Olympics, but they've been having their problems with coronavirus big time. So but they'll be home in another year. But we're hoping to get over there before they come home. But, and Danny is in a relationship, and he's the only one that would live out here in the sticks. Small town. He lives in Vermilion, which is where I go practice every day, and Brittany and Keegan are there with him also. So that's pretty much a rundown, I think.
Awesome. Well, Bob, thank you so much for being on. You know, what you've accomplished is really something special. And I'm always curious about something really unique, something special. You and I've got to get back together because, you know, like you, I still want to learn. I still want to watch. So I can try to pass that knowledge forward. So thank you so much for being on. It's been great.
Bill, it's been my pleasure and my honor. I appreciate it very much. And you're a lifelong learner, and I respect that tremendously.
Well, awesome. We got to get together, and we'll bring Steve too, because
Thank
believe
you.
me,
I would love that. Thanks. It's a pleasure meeting you, Bob, and congratulations on all your success.
Well, thank you, Steve. Appreciate all you do.